Margie, could you possibly do the Jadwani?
Jai Shishi Guru Garanga Ganhavika Gidit Hari Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Shrita Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Mahabhagavat Srila Gaura Kishodas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Saptam Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan Gaudi Varantaracharya Ki Jai Jai Rasik Siramani Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Treya Ki Jai Jai Srila Krishnas Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shri Bhata Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bharadasa Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu's Ki Jai Jai Swarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Gaura Parsada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikha Holsi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Jamuna Ki Jai Brihat Mridanga Ki Jai Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai Nam Bhajam Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Ki Jai Nrsingadev Bhagavan Ki Jai Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Antadvip Mayapur Simantadvip Gaudamdvip Matidvip Koladvip Rijadvip Janadvip Modamdvip Rudavip Atmakanavadvip Dham Ki Jai Jai Bhadravan, Bandiravan, Belvan, Lohavan, Mahavan, Madhuvan, Talvan, Kamudvan, Bahulavan, Vrindavan, Kadyavan, Kamyavan, Vraja-mandala Ki Jai Jai Tirabhav Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Tirabhav Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Trivikrama Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Vraja-mandala Parikrama 2021 Srila Gurudev Centennial Year Ki Jai Anantakota Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you, Maharaj. Dandvat Pranams, Hari Bol, everybody. The Kirtaniya is, as they say in India, just now coming. So we have probably about a 60-second, hopefully, delay, and then he'll be in to do Kirtan. Margie, maybe could you do a little Maha Mantra while we wait for
him? Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna.
Okay, Marsh. He's here.
I'll just finish. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Thanks, Maharaj. Okay, Manas Haribol, thank you so much, Prabhu. Just need to put your video on.
Okay. Haribol.
Haribol, Dhanva.
Haribol. You can hear me perfect?
Could be a little louder.
How about now?
Nice, nice.
Okay. Okay, so I just got confused. I thought I was closing, not opening, so I didn't.
Don't worry, you're not the only one who's confused this morning. I'm confused. I wasn't sure if I confused you or you got confused. Never mind. You're here, so I'm grateful. Thank you.
Okay. So today I'm gonna sing this bhajan. Radhe. राधा नाम परम सुखदाई. 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 हाँ लहर लहर श्री श्यामा जू की. लहर लहर श्री श्यामा जू की. मन में मेरे समाए. मन में मेरे समाए. राधा नाम परम सुखदाई. राधा नाम परम सुखदाई. हो रट रट राधा जन्म बिताऊं. रट रट राधा जन्म बिताऊं. रज गोपिन की शीस नवाऊं. रज गोपिन की शीस नवाऊं. महिमा कहीं नहीं जाए. महिमा कहीं नहीं जाए. राधा नाम परम सुखदाई. राधा नाम परम सुखदाई. हो ब्रज तज के मैं कहीं नहीं जाऊं. ब्रज तज के मैं कहीं नहीं जाऊं. रसिक संतन के दर्शन पाऊं रसिक संतन के, दर्शन पाऊं जग से प्रीति हटाए, जग से प्रीति हटाए, राधा नाम परम सुखदाय, राधा नाम परम सुखदाय। हो लहर लहर श्री श्यामा जू की, लहर लहर श्री श्यामा जू की, लहर लहर श्री श्यामा जू की, मन में मेरे समा आए, मन में मेरे समा। जय राधे जय राधे जय राधे, जय श्री राधे, जय श्यामा जय श्यामा, जय श्यामा जय श्री श्यामा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे रामा राम राम हरे हरे। गौर हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, निताय गौर हरि बोल। जय जय गुरुदेव की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल।
Dandvat pranams, Manas Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Pranam Prabhu ji.
We are so happy to have your kirtan and your association. Let's
Maharaja
got
ji.
a beautiful bonus and give my Dandvat pranams to Subi.
Sure.
Haribol, Haribol.
Hari Bol Prabhu.
Vanchakalpa Trubhischa, Kripasindu Evacha, Patitanam Pavanabhyo, Vaishnavabhyo, Namamaha. Om Gyan Tinamandasya, Gyanjana Salakaya, Chakshurmilitam Yena, Tashma Ishi Guru Namaha. Shinadapi Sunichana, Tarorapi Sahishnuna, Amanina Manadena, Kitne Sadahari, Tatenu Kampam Susamik Shamano, Bunjanavatma Kritam Vipakam, Hitvak Papudevidan Namaste, Jivataya Mukti Sataya Bak, Vachavegam, Anashkoravegam, Jivavegam, Rurapastavegam, Etamvegam, Yovisaheta Dira, Savamapimam Pritvim Sasasyat, Anya Balasta Sunyam, Gyan Kamadhyana Vrita, Manukalenya Krishnu Shilanam, Bhakti Uttama, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadata Shivasadi, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Offer my Shashtanga Dandava pranams to my most merciful Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Gosvami Maharaj. Offer my Shashtanga Dandavat pranams to Srila Prabhupada, to the entire Parampara, to our line of Rupanugas, to Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami, to Lord Nityananda Prabhu, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Shri Radha and Krishna. For my Shishtanga Dandavats to all the assembled devotees who so kindly and beautifully serve Sri Hari by attending these classes, this Harikatha every day during this holy month of Kartik, and all of those on Zoom and Facebook and YouTube, and all devotees who are going to be watching the recordings on this beautiful centennial year of Gurudev's appearance year. We have a particularly special and wonderful day. Is it day 19 or day 18? It's all going so fast. I think it's day 19, isn't it? Yeah, we're on day
19.
Gosh, it's just flying by. That's phenomenal. Anyway, day 19. We're incredibly grateful to our speakers, Sripad Bhaktivedanta Nemi Maharaj and Sripad Bhaktivedanta Tridandi Maharaj, because every day they're putting in a wonderful stint, sharing their hearts, sharing their knowledge and insights and realizations. So we're very fortunate every day to have their association to get some of this bathe in this nectar. Today is a very special day. I'm sure you're all aware. In the UK, anywhere east of the UK, I don't think in the States, we're one day out from the States. Today is the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj and Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj. They are really known as the triumvirate of gurus, and our speakers will be speaking at length about them, so I won't say anything about them at all, other than the fact that they are, along with my Srila Gurudev, the most illustrious and extraordinary personalities, and for three of them to be on the planet at the same time in the same place is quite something. Before I hand over to Sripad Bhaktivedanta Nemi Maharaj, I'm going to play a video that relates to the subject today. So just bear with me while I share the screen, and we'll start with a nice video. Can you hear the sound? Thank you so much to Janardhan Prabhu for producing these videos. So much is said with these beautiful reels. So much exchange between these personalities, and I think quite a lot of transmission. So it's very wonderful having these videos and watching these great personalities. So I'm going to hand over to Sripad Bhaktivedanta Nemi Maharaj. Maharaji, lovely to see you this morning. Good morning to you. You have 45 minutes and the Vyasa is yours.
Om Agyana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shri Shiman Bhaktivedanta Narayaniti Namane. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Shimad Bhaktivedanta Narayaniti Namane. Namam Vishnupadaya Guru Prestaya Bhutale Shri Shimad Bhaktivedanta Vamaniti Namane. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Puritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Of my humble obeisances, the lotus feet, my beloved Diksha Guru, Nityalila Bhavishta Shishima Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaja Srila Prabhupada. Lotus feet, my beloved Shiksha and Sannyas Guru, Rupanugavara Shishima Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Lotus feet of my beloved Shiksha Guru, Shri Bhaktivedanta Bharati Maharaj. Of my humble obeisances, the lotus feet of Param Pujyapad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj. All Vaishnavas in our Rupanuga Guru Varga offer obeisances to all devotees, headed by our senior devotees and Tridandigan, Pujyapad Sri Bhaktivedanta Tridandi Maharaj. Hare Krishna. So today, disappearance day of Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj and Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj. And we saw just a glimpse of their interactions with each other. So much loving exchange, so much affection. Srila Gurudev telling Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, no, there's no need for you to speak now. And Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, anyway, going ahead. Srila Gurudev personally putting prasad in the mouth of Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj. We're privileged actually to, even to get just a taste or a reflection of a taste of these loving exchanges between Mahabhagavats and Pakka Vaishnavas. And there's beautiful loving exchanges between them. We're very, very, very fortunate. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj, I did a little research actually. Obviously we've heard from our Gurudev, and I did a little research, and I was amazed at, what I found, what a personality Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj actually is. I just remembered before, when we were at festivals, or Kartik with our Gurudev. So especially on the morning walks with Srila Gurudev. So at the end of the walk, he would say, so today's class will be like this. And Abhinav Maharaj talk about this, Shamarani talk about this, Ashar Maharaj talk about this. And then after the walk, everybody will scuttle off, and all the preachers were sitting with their laptops and mugging up for the class in the evening. And we all knew that although Srila Gurudev had explained who's going to talk about what, he could easily reverse everything. So we had to know everything and be prepared. And if not, then public disgrace. There's one time he called on me to talk on Prahlad Maharaj. It's a big festival in Holland, like 1,000 devotees there. And he'd already told me that you're older, there's no need for you to learn many shlokas. My Guru Maharaj never recited many shlokas. So he called on me to speak, and he said, so this verse? And I didn't know the verse. He said, sit down. And then later, once I was taking leave of him, after Gaur Purnima, we were in Giriraj Govardhan Mud. And I went in to take leave before just going off to travel preaching for the summer season. It was just myself and Vrajanath Prabhu there. So Srila Gurudev said, so how have I trained you? I didn't know what to say. Vrajanath said, oh, by your example, Srila Gurudev. No, I made you speak in front of me. And yeah, he trained up his speakers. Once there was some question that one senior devotee might take sannyas. It was a morning walk. And Srila Gurudev turned to him, he said, Anyabhilasha shunyam. Explain this verse. So he explained something, not very fully. Srila Gurudev said, you should wait. And that was the standard. So just remembering, because of the little research that I did about Srila Parampujapad, Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Gosvami Maharaj, truly Mahabhagavat. So he took birth in a Vaishnava family in East Bengal. His mother was a disciple of Srila Saraswati Prabhupada, and his uncle was one of the first disciples of Srila Saraswati Prabhupada, and actually his name was Narasingha Maharaj, the uncle. So there's two kind of explanations of how he came to join the Mark. One is that his father was not so strict, and his mother was very strict, and she would even like discipline her husband if he went against regulations. So in the end, she actually took him to the Mart, and his uncle was already there. So she put him in the uncle's care, and then he came in under the care of Srila Vinod Das Brahmachari, who later became Srila Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj. Otherwise, we hear, like from Pujapad Ban Maharaj, for example. So the first time that he went, his name was Santosh. Boyhood name, Santosh. So the first time that he went on Vraja-mandala Parikrama with Srila Saraswati Prabhupada, he was completely captivated and enchanted. And at the end of the Parikrama, so his family was ready to go back home, and he said, "No, I'm staying here. This is my home." They were crying. In the end, they left him there. So his uncle was there. In any case, he joined the Mud very young, maybe 7 years or 9 years, something like this. Not so many devotees there. And he was under the care of Vinod Brahmachari, later Srila Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj. And he used to serve all the devotees. He would clean the toilets. When it came time for prasad, So he would put out the plates, put out salt, put out the lemon, and then afterwards he would clean everything up. And he got the blessings of the devotees in this way. He was very, very obedient and very inclined to service. At school, he was an exceptional student. He had totally photographic memory. He could remember everything. Not just remember shlokas, but he could remember the page number, the edition of the book, everything. So on one occasion, maybe a new teacher came into the class, wasn't acquainted with the task. So open your books. And all the students opened their books, except Santosh. He's just sitting there. So the teacher said, open your books. Open your book. What are you doing? Chastised him. And then the other students there told the teacher, he doesn't have to open his book. He knows everything already. So teacher, that's ridiculous. He said, and he read out one sentence, and Santosh completed the paragraph. He knew everything. And the teacher was astounded. Later on one occasion, Pujpa Ban Maharaj, he asked Srila Vamana Maharaj, his Guru Maharaj, Srila Vamana Maharaj, he asked him, so how many slokas do you know? And Srila Vamana Maharaj said, I could speak 7 days and 7 nights, and I wouldn't finish the shlokas. I remember one time we were with Pujpa Tirtha Maharaj, and somehow the subject came up, how many shlokas we have to know. So somebody asked him, how many shlokas do you know? And he said, about 10,000 probably. You don't need to know that many. 3,000 is enough. Yeah, right. So after he joined the Maharaja, he was still going to school. And he would Narahari Prabhu, Seva Vigraha Narahari, very, very, very dear godbrother of Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Gosvami Maharaj. So he used to cut the sabji. And Srila Vamana Maharaj, Santosh, he would sit with him and cut sabji. And he was very expert, both at cutting the sabji and also cooking. And the devotees even knew when Santosh had actually cooked. Sajjak Seva Brahmachari. Sajjan Seva Brahmachari. So on one occasion, it was very, very heavy rain. And Narahari Prabhu, he said, oh, it's so heavy rain, there's no need for you to go to school. So Santosh, he washed out his clothes. He just had one set of clothes, one pair of shorts, one t-shirt, that's it. So he washed them out and they were hanging, dripping wet. And then Srila Saraswati Prabhupada came by. So he looked at Santosh, he said, why aren't you at school? So Narahari Prabhu said, oh, I told him there's too much rain. He doesn't have to go. And Srila Saraswati Prabhupada said, no, he should go. You should go to school. So Santosh said, what am I going to do now? My clothes are soaking wet. So he chanted his Nrsimha mantra. And he went into where the clothes are hanging. They were perfectly dry, as if somebody just ironed them. So he put on the clothes and he went to school. When he came back, Srila Saraswati Prabhupada asked him, so how did you get to school? And the boy replied, oh, you wanted me to go to school, so I chanted the Nrsimha mantra and my clothes were all dry. And Srila Saraswati Prabhupada started crying. He was so moved by his devotion and his faith in Prabhupada. So later on, he received initiation, Harinam initiation. He received from Srila Saraswati Prabhupada. But he always regarded Srila Bhaktivedanta Vinod Brahmachari, Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj as his guru, because Vinod Brahmachari, he was always looking after him, looking after his needs, giving him instruction. He would have him learn shlokas. So he said, if you learn one shloka, I will give you toffee. So toffee in India, toffee in the West, it means that brown sticky thing. But in India, toffee means any kind of wrapped sweet. So Srila Vamana Maharaj, he was very expert. And he could learn 6, 7, 10 shlokas in a day. And then he would get that many sweets, and then he'd distribute them to the other to the other students. So later on, after Saraswati Prabhupada passed away, left this world, then there was a big plot, and there was a huge group of devotees. Our Param Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, still Vinod Brahmachari at that time, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Babaji Maharaj, Narahari Prabhu, 45 devotees, they would falsely charge with murder and put in prison. And the one person that the police left was Sajjan Sevak. So Santosh, that's his initiated name, Sajjan Sevak, because he was so young, no need for him to be in prison. So then what to do? All the devotees in prison, they need feeding. So Sajjan Sevak, he did all the cooking, but then there was objection from the devotees because he didn't have Diksha at that time. So then Srila Vinod Brahmachari, Srila Keshav Maharaj, gave him Diksha through the bars of the prison. So then he was cooking, buying all the vegetables, cooking for a big group, 45, it's a large group, carrying the prasad to the prison, feeding them. And then at the same time, he went to Calcutta and he got a very expert lawyer. So the lawyer came, and when he came, the opposite party, they were really afraid because he was a very, very expert lawyer. So the first thing he said, I want to see the death records. So it turned out that the person that they were supposed to have murdered actually died after he fell out of a tree. The whole thing was false, totally, of course. So they were released. But that was one big seva that Srila Vamana Maharaj, performed for his Guru Maharaj and for all the other devotees. Later on, Vinod Brahmachari, he received sannyas from Srila Bhakti Rakshak Goswami Maharaj. Twice in dreams, Srila Saraswati Prabhupada had wanted to give him sannyas, we discussed, but the other god brothers didn't want that to happen because they said that the manager of the mutt actually depended on Vinod Brahmachari, and if he received sannyas, he wouldn't do the management, and then all the management in the mutts would fall to pieces. So Saraswati Prabhupada never gave him sannyas. But after Saraswati Prabhupada passed away, he had dreams of taking sannyas. And in the end, after one dream, in the dream, he was called Keshav Maharaj. So it was agreed he received sannyas from Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj at Katwa, where Lord Chaitanya, Nimai Pandit, received sannyas, became Sri Krishna Chaitanya. At that place on Vishwarup Mahotsav. So then after that, Srila Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj. So he formed his own movement, his own branch of the Gaudiya Math called Vedanta Samiti. Vedanta Samiti. And of course, Sajjan Toshak, he was with him, as was Gaura Narayan. And I don't remember Srila Trivikrama Maharaj's previous name. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Goswami Maharaj, he founded Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti on Akshaya Tritiya. It's a very important day of the year. It's the most favorable day in the whole year for starting new projects. And one of the people who was with him, one of the Vaishnavas who was with him when he founded that was my Guru Maharaj, at that time Abhay Charanarvindam Das Adhikari. So he founded Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti, and then later on, so Sajjan Toshak Brahmachari was with him from the beginning of the Samiti. And then Srila Trivikrama Maharaj joined a little later. Then after that, Srila our Gurudev, he met with Narottam Das Brahmachari, who was disciple of Srila Saraswati Prabhupada. So previously, our Gurudev had been Ram Bhakta. But after meeting with Narottam Brahmachari, he became enchanted by this Krishna Katha, and he became Krishna Bhakta, Radha Krishna Bhakta. He prayed for permission from Sitaram that I want to worship Radha Krishna. They said, yes, we are Radha Krishna. So he became so enchanted that he decided he wanted to leave, he wanted to join the mud. He didn't want to maintain, he was in family life. He didn't want to maintain family life there at all. So he ran away from home. He didn't tell anyone what was happening. He had just one lota with him. And he ran through the forest for 2 train stops so that nobody, when he got onto the train, nobody would know who he was. And finally, the train came into Mayapur station. It was dead of night. And he got out. There was no lights that time. And then he saw a lantern coming up the platform, and someone's calling out, Tiwariji, Tiwariji, Tiwariji. So this is Gurudev's name, his family name is Tiwari. So Sajjan Sevak came up to me, are you Tiwariji? Yes, I'm Tiwariji. Why are you here? How did you know I was coming? I didn't write to anybody. And Sajjan Sevak Brahmachari said, no, our Guru Maharaj, he told me that you were coming. He told me to come and meet you. He said that you were coming. And he took him back to the mud, and Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Goswami Maharaj embraced our Gurudev very. It's unusual in India for people to, like, at first meeting, to embrace like that. So, and then later on, 1954, Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Goswami Maharaj, he told our Gurudev and Srila Parampujapad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana and Sajjan Sevak Brahmachari, and I think Radhanath, I'm not sure, Brahmachari. He told them that he wanted to give them sannyas, all 3 of them. And they were reluctant. They thought, we're not actually qualified to take sannyas at all. In the end, he gave them sannyas. So they became the 3 pillars of Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti. But we could see on the video the quality of the relationships between them. You can see Srila Gurudev. It looks as though it must have been the installation of the deities at Rup Sanatan, or in any case, he was showing Param Pujyapad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj, who was now the Acharya of Gaudiya Samiti after Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Goswami Maharaj had passed away. So he became the Acharya. You can see on the one hand, Srila Gurudev, his respect and deference to Srila Vamana Maharaj. And on the other hand, you can see that such deep affection between them. There's one video I've seen, Srila Gurudev gave a garland to Srila Vamana Maharaj, and then Srila Vamana Maharaj gave a garland to Srila Gurudev. And you can see, we saw how Gurudev was actually feeding, like hand to mouth, feeding Srila Vamana Maharaj. So on the one hand, such deep, loving honor for each other. And on the other hand, so much very intimate, loving affection. After the disappearance of, anyway, that comes later. So Srila Vamana Maharaj, before this, he'd been serving, so he offered so much service to Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Goswami Maharaj. He was responsible. They had a Bengali journal, regular journal, and he was responsible for writing and editing and setting up the printing work. On one occasion, he got his hand crushed in the printing press, seriously injured. And Srila Keshav Maharaj, he was crying, and he personally carried him to the hospital, and everything healed. So then after Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Goswami Maharaj passed away, so they became the three pillars of the Gaudiya Samiti. And Srila Vamana Maharaj, if people wanted some management questions or like that, he would say, oh, you ask Srila Narayana Maharaj, he knows. I don't know all the details, he knows. Pujyapad Bam Maharaj, he related one incident that Srila Vamana Maharaj came to Braj, and he went out in a car because he wanted to tour some of the sacred places. So he went out in a car with 2 or 3 devotees, and they were touring. It got really late, and in the end, the car stopped, and the driver said, "We run out of petrol." So they were out in the middle of nowhere, just like boondocks. So where are they going to get petrol? Srila Vamana Maharaj is sitting in the back of the car. He didn't say anything. And then just out of nowhere, this Brajbasi comes with a can of petrol. He pours it into the tank, and they started up the car and went back to, I suppose, to Keshav Gaudiya. And our Gurudev was waiting for him. He was very anxious. What happened? Why are you so late? So the devotees, explained what had happened. They'd run out of petrol, but then fortunately, somebody just turned up. So Srila Vamana Maharaj at that time, he revealed that actually that was Krishna himself. He disguised himself as Brajbasi, and he himself, Srila Vamana Maharaj said, and he came with the petrol. He was very, very, very humble. Didn't like to be glorified. He never glorified himself. Gurudev said even by accident, he never glorified himself. And before his Vyasa Puja ceremony, he used to disappear because he didn't want the devotees to be glorifying him. There was one occasion, one devotee wanted to entertain Srila Vamana Maharaj, feed him and like that. So he invited him, and Srila Vamana Maharaj came, and he had a prasadam, and then he left. So then later, this devotee, Vaishnava, at the time of the festival, he came to Srila Vamana Maharaj's servant, and he said, you know, he thanked him for arranging for Vamana Maharaj to come and take prasad. And the servant said, he didn't come and take prasad. He was with me all the time. But the Vaishnava said, no, he came and took prasadam with us. And later they looked in, although he'd been, so he was in two places at once. They looked in his diary and it detailed what kind of prasad he'd had at these Vaishnavas' place. He was very, very mystical. He arranged weddings for ghosts. He liberated so many, you know, ghosts. So he and our Gurudev had a very close relationship. Actually, Srila Gurudev's main disciples and helpers, trainees in Keshaji Gaudiya Math in Mathura, they were all Diksha disciples of Srila Vamana Maharaj. Now, Pujapad Shri Bhaktivedanta Madhav Maharaj, Pujapad Ban Maharaj, our previously Pujapad Tirtha Maharaj, and Premananda Prabhuji, all of them. They're all Diksha disciples of Srila Vamana Maharaj. But he sent them to our Gurudev. And we were intrigued, you know, when they received sannyas, who gave them the Umadidi, yes, also, thank you. Who gave them the sannyas mantras? Srila Vamana Maharaj or Srila Gurudev? And much, much later, we heard that actually Srila Vamana Maharaj and Srila Gurudev, they both pronounced the sannyas mantra at the same time. Very close relationship. So, Srila Trivikrama Maharaj passed away. And then 2 years later, on the same day, Srila Vamana Maharaj passed away. And the devotees in Navadvip, of course, we were on Vraja-mandala Parikrama at that time in Govardhan. And the devotees in Navadvip, they sent an urgent message to Srila Gurudev that please come and put Srila Vamana Maharaj in Samadhi as Srila Vamana Maharaj himself had requested. So there was 1,000 devotees on the Parikrama, and Srila Gurudev was actually not in the best of health at that time. Anyway, he left, he went to Delhi and he flew to Calcutta, and then he went to Devananda Gaudiya Math. And incredibly, he got there in the morning, and incredibly, some of the other disciples, or so-called disciples of Srila Vamana Maharaj, they'd already put him in Samadhi at night. Anyway, he performed other functions. He was very, very, very disturbed about that. When he left, he said that they were begging him, please, to stay. Srila Vamana Maharaj is gone, please don't you leave us. He said, I cannot stay here, I've been insulted. And they were lying on the ground in front of his car. Didn't want him to leave. But anyway, he came back to us in Braj, Govardhan. He related what had happened. He was very sorry about it. So subsequently, the devotees became very, very disturbed in case Srila Gurudev would also leave on the same day as Srila Vamana Maharaj and Srila Trivikrama Maharaj. And actually, he had expressed his intention to do so. So I remember one disappearance festival, Srila Gurudev became very emotional. They were glorifying Srila Vamana Maharaj and Srila Trivikrama Maharaj. And Srila Gurudev became very emotional, and devotees became very upset and very apprehensive. So then the next year, I don't remember which sannyasi it was. he wasn't one of Gurudev's disciples, sannyas disciples. So he was glorifying Trivikrama Maharaj, Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, and Srila Vamana Maharaj, and he went on, and then Srila Gurudev rang the cartels to stop him, and he just went on and on, and Gurudev rang the cartels again to stop him, and then he just went on and on, and then Gurudev bang, 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 like this. And it seemed to me that actually he was deliberately making Srila Gurudev angry, so that he wouldn't go deep into a separation mood and just leave out of separation for the other two. And then 2010, 2009, the final year anyway, Srila Gurudev, I mean, his health was, he didn't have health. He was in such poor condition, physically poor condition. So somehow or other he came to Govardhan, and the devotees were beside themselves in anxiety, praying that he wouldn't leave at that time. And his, like Pujabhat Bham Maharaj, Tirtha Maharaj, they were performing sacrifices at night so that Srila Gurudev couldn't leave. And later on, Srila Gurudev said, I wanted to leave on that day. I don't know what mantras those mad people were reciting, but I couldn't leave. And then later on, 3 or 4 months later on the day, he left on the day of Srila Vamana Maharaj's appearance day. Pujabhat Premananda Prabhu said, I don't know, in a vision, a dream or something, he saw that Srila Gurudev didn't actually know the date. He didn't know that it was, I mean, physically, he didn't know that it was Srila Vamana Maharaj's appearance day. Premananda Prabhu said he saw Srila Vamana Maharaj came into Gurudev and he held his hand and they just went off together. We were fortunate that we had, I can't say that I associated with Srila Vamana Maharaj, but I was there when he was giving Harikatha with our Gurudev, to see the three of them together. Towards the end, he was actually, even when I first joined 1996, so we heard about Srila Vamana Maharaj that he was chanting 3 lakhs at that time. So he said he would chant 1 lakh for himself, 1 lakh for his disciples, and 1 lakh for all living beings. And we heard that he would sit with a big pile of handkerchiefs on one side, and he was just chanting and crying, and wiping his face with the handkerchiefs, and he'd end up with a big pile of wet handkerchiefs on the other side of him. Very, very, I mean, mystical personality. The one time I had any direct interaction with him personally, when we were staying in Devananda Gaudiya Math, after Mangalarti, the devotees would come up and we'd offer obeisances to Srila Gurudev would be sitting in his room, Srila Trivikrama Maharaj would be sitting in his room, and Srila Vamana Maharaj would be sitting in his room on the bed under the, within the mosquito netting. So we come in and offer obeisances. And just on one occasion, he just looked right at me. Just looked, he didn't say anything. But I felt completely transfixed by his glance. It's so powerful. Not when I say powerful, it's, I don't know what word to use, but effective. Just impressive. It just made such an impression. And then right at the end, he wasn't walking, and they would just carry him. He was sitting with his legs folded, and they would just carry him like that from his room, carry him all the way up like that, and then put him on the stage, and he would give Harikatha. I remember Gurudev, Srila Gurudev giving Harikatha, and Vamana Maharaj was like staring at him like a young child who's just seeing a devotee for the first time in his life. So simple. practically the last time he came on Parikrama, he didn't speak. He wouldn't speak at all. And Sri Gurudev was, at each place he would ask him to speak, and he didn't speak. And in the end, at that time, I don't know what the situation is now, but at that time, Gurudev or someone, they had land which was just opposite, I think opposite the Chaitanya Marg, Sri Chaitanya Marg in Antadweep. So all the Vaishnavas assembled there, and Srila Vamana Maharaj was there, and all of them, they were there. So everybody wanted to hear from him, and Srila Gurudev again begged him to speak. And that was the only time he spoke on that parikrama. He said, "I thought you invited me for prasadam." And that's all he said. So these are like memories of my childhood in a sense, because I was just like, when I came to Srila Gurudev, I was just like a baby. And I've been so fortunate to be part of that family, Gaudiya family, with these exalted Mahabhagavat Vaishnavas, see their exchanges between them, and grow up with those impressions, and remember and revere these memories, and how fortunate I am, really, how fortunate we are to have had the association of such utterly extraordinary personalities, manifestations from the spiritual world. So today, on the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj, I'm offering my obeisances at his lotus feet and praying for his blessings that somehow or other I can progress in bhakti and progress in my service to his dearly beloved Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and to my Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasinubhyavach putitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Thank you, Maharaji. You alluded many times to his mystical side, and last night, Srimati Vasanti Didi was telling us how he had a reputation for being able to walk through locked doors. So sometimes, I think one devotee, I think it was in Delhi or somewhere, one devotee came back to his house, and his guru was sitting there. Vamana Maharaj was sitting there. Just could get through it. Amazing, amazing. I met Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj on more than one occasion, but I have to say that your Katha today deepened my connection with him to a great degree. Thank you so much. I really felt him present in the room through your sharing. So I'm very indebted to you for that. That's beautiful, because by coming close to him, I feel like I'm close to Gurudev for the very reasons you gave, and close to Parampara. So I'm very grateful. Thank you, Maharaj. It's beautiful.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol. So we're going to go from the high plains of Hackney back to India, to Godram, for our beloved Shripad Bhaktivedanta Tridandi Maharaj. Hare Bol, Maharaj.
From the ridiculous to the sublime.
I believe
unmute him, give him the power of speech.
Oh yeah, I have to unmute him as well. Yes, of course. Do I have permission, Maharaj, to unmute him?
No, in deaf and dumb language is okay.
Okay, you're good to go, Maharaj.
Jai Guruve Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tirare Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha. I'm offering my Dandavat pranams to my most beloved Gurudev, Nityalila Prabhishna Amasto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Nityalila Pravishta Amasto Taradhara Shishimat Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj, and our most dear Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj, and our most beloved Nityalila Pravishta Amasto Taradhara Shishimat Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and all our illustrious Rupanuga Guru Vargya on this most wonderful, sacred, auspicious day today. My Dandavat pranams to all the devotees on this thread and all the devotees who may listen in the future. Hare Krishna, my Dandavat pranams to you all. Well, that was the most astonishing guitar we just heard from our dear Bhaktivedanta Nemi Maharaj. Exceptional description, and he brought us right up close to this extraordinary personality of Srila Vamana Maharaj. We are so fortunate to hear about him. I feel today personally exceptionally fortunate to have an opportunity to glorify him and Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj, both of these personalities. But hearing the glories of Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj completely melts the heart of the struggling sadhaks. To hear his Guru Nishta in principle, it's described that my beloved Gurudev would describe that he spent so much time with Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj, practically 50, 60 years, I think, something of that nature. And he witnessed his extraordinary Guru Nishta. And our dear Nemi Maharaj, he's described so many different aspects of that. There was one little thing that he left for me to pick up, was when Srila Vamana Maharaj was working on the printing press, and he sliced off the ends of his fingers on the printing press. And Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj immediately personally took him to the hospital in Calcutta. And my Gurudev describes how Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj was weeping constantly for the pain that Srila Vamana Maharaj was enduring for the sake of his seva. So this relationship, I think, is what I really heard Srila Bhaktivedanta Nemi Maharaj describing today. This relationship between these three personalities in particular, but also, of course, there was Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj at the center. So these three personalities, the three pillars of the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti, this institution that Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj created when he left Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's original Gaudiya Math. And the camaraderie, and more than camaraderie, the bonding of these three brothers, basically, they really were. I also had the fortune, the greatest fortune, to see them together sometimes. And just they're too extraordinary to try even put into words. Just so remarkable. And when I heard our Nemi Maharaj describing that look in Srila Vamana Maharaj's eyes, I remember I also received that same look through the horn-rimmed spectacles. He forgot to say the horn-rimmed spectacles were there. And I remember coming to his door in Navadvip, where you described, and he would be encased in his mosquito net. Nobody could even touch his feet or get near him. But I looked at him, and somehow, because the Mahabhagavat has that ability to see into the souls of the conditioned souls, and he just looked right through me with that glance that just pushed me right back deep into my consciousness, just for a moment. It's like those sort of impressions are indelible in the consciousness, and with great joy. And there were a number of times when he would come to Braj and he would sit on the podium with my Gurudev, and as Nemi Maharaj described, he wouldn't speak. Many times he wouldn't speak. But it's described that previously by Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj that even when he was a younger sannyasi, he would always give deference to the other sannyasis to speak. He wouldn't try ever to push himself forward. He wasn't of that nature. And I can remember our dear Uma Didi telling me that he never, ever once wanted to know anyone's opinion on his Hari guitar. He didn't want to know. He was not interested in what people thought he was performing. He was speaking his Hari guitar for the pleasure of his guru and his guru vargya. And however people received it, that was their business, so to speak. But he didn't want to. This mood of absolute humility was the embodiment of this personality. When we meet a great person, this is the quality, like Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, like my beloved Gurudev. We see this profound, profound humility. It's like, it's so powerful a quality. And we particularly witness this in our dear Srila Bhaktivedanta, Srila Trivikrama Maharaj. He never accepted a disciple. He always deferred to Srila Vamana Maharaj as his senior. Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, he came to the mat a little later. He came in his mid-20s, whereas Srila Vamana Maharaj came when he was 9 years old. His mother just left him there in the mud. But Srila Trivikrama Maharaj came when he was in his mid-20s, it's described. And Srila Trivikrama Maharaj was a greatly accomplished musician. He could play the sitar. He was very accomplished in so many arts and poetry in particular, and cooking, and he was like his own doctor. He was always giving us Ayurvedic medications on our parikramas, and he would read our palms if we pressured him sufficiently, and just everything about Srila Trivikrama Maharaj was, it was quite a contrast to Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj, who was so incredibly grave. It seems like with Srila Vamana Maharaj that he was holding the repository of all the Shastras within his consciousness and mind. He was completely immersed in that meditation and state. It's described that he would read at least minimum 6 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam every single day, just completely absorbed. And Bhaktivedanta Nemi Maharaj was describing that he could speak shlokas for 7 days and 7 nights and still would not complete the amount of shlokas that he had impressed within his consciousness. So when you meet someone of that caliber, that nature, they are so extraordinary. But Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj was a much more jovial type of personality. That was his, the three together, they had their chemistry. They had the particular support system for each other. And it's described that when my Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, he joined the Mat, he was placed in the hands of Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj, who at that time was Radhanath Prabhu. So Radhanath took care of my Gurudev. He taught him how to do kirtan. And my Gurudev describes that his Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj, would never, ever slap him or chastise him. But Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj would do that. He would chastise him very lovingly, but he would give him whatever correction that was necessary. So this was their relationship. It was so bonding, so beautiful to appreciate, especially in later years when Srila Trivikrama Maharaj became very debilitated and had to have a stick to walk around with. And he would come with us on the Vrindavan Parikramas in a special Maruti van. He would have a particular one servant would look after him. And he was just such an extraordinary personality. He would stitch his own caps. He would make these, what we call today in the West, Prabhupada hats. He would sit there stitching them carefully and make these hats, which didn't always look like they were tailor-made, but they were very beautiful. But just that expression, that creative expression. And his English, by the way, was fluent without any accent. When Srila Trivikrama Maharaj would speak, he would speak like the Queen's English, so to speak. There was no accent at all in his speaking. So Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, his mood was very, very congenial. I can remember the very first time in Navadvip that I went there, early 90s, 3, 4, something like this. And I was climbing the stairs to visit my Gurudev. And he had a room underneath Gurudev on the ground floor. And as I was climbing up, he called me. I didn't know who he was. I'd never seen him before in my life. But he seemed like a very effulgent, beautiful, congenial sannyasi. And at that time, I was in the Grihastha ashram with my wife, and he called us both into his room. And he began to question us, where are you going? Oh, you're going upstairs to see him. He kept referring to Srila Narayana Maharaj as him upstairs. And he was just joking and laughing with us, you know, but in such a completely disarmingly affectionate way, just chuckling, and his eyes were just like sparkling and very, very jolly. And then he knew that we were anxious to go upstairs, but he wouldn't let us go. He kept on like speaking in a very beautiful way. And then finally he just said, right, now you can go, like in a very directive type of a way. But his mood was just sublime to be close to a personality of that nature. And there was a time when our Gurudev describes that when he was traveling, he traveled a lot with Srila Bhaktivedanta, Srila Trivikrama Maharaj. And they would assist in the preaching of Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj. They would be doing all the backup aspects of his touring around. And my Gurudev had the task of looking after the slide projector. And he always had to produce the slide projector at the beginning of Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj's discourse in the villages. But this one particular day, due to some forgetfulness, he had left the slide projector in the last city that they'd just come from. And he was really feeling bereft and deeply troubled. And Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj, he noticed his anxious look and he inquired. And then my Gurudev revealed that, oh, I've left the slide projector behind. And Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, he said, don't worry, I'll cover for you. I'll arrange everything. So my Gurudev was sort of very anxious still. And when it came time in the evening for the lecture, Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj was sitting there. There was a large group of villagers and so on. And then Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj turned to Srila Narayana Maharaj and said, so, is the projector all ready to go? And Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, he said, oh, Gurudev, it's very cloudy tonight. I think it might rain. If we have the projector, it might cause some problem with the electricity, etc. And time is a little bit short. So I think it's better that you just speak tonight and we save the slides for another day. And Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj, he thought for a moment, then he thought, very good. Okay, we'll do like that. And then they just carried on. And there was no hitch. There was no embarrassment for Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaj. So of course he was called Narayan at that time, but there was no problem. So he was saved again. It was as if Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, his service was to perform many managerial tasks. It's described that Srila Vamana Maharaj could have done all these managerial tasks, and so could Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaj, but Srila Trivikrama Maharaj was given these specific duties to perform. And it's described that he would question Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj very carefully to know that he could execute the task exactly according to the way that Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj wanted it performed. And he would never miss a beat in performing the task 100% correctly. But first he had to ask many, many questions sometimes. So my Gurudev describes like that. But the particular flavor of when Srila Trivikrama Maharaj would come to our Vrindavan Parikramas and of course the Vraja-mandala Parikramas, that the joking flavor between my Gurudev and him was so profound. My Gurudev would always be proclaiming the camp of Sri Radhika, and Srila Trivikrama Maharaj would just choose to take the camp of Krishna. And always there would be this contrast. And we see in that footage that was there how Srila Narayan Maharaj, he is as if going to pull one of Srila Trivikrama Maharaj's ears, but just witnessing the closeness and the love, the deep, deep, affectionate bond between these personalities. With Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj, I can remember on the Parikramas, he would come and sit in some of the places. I can remember specifically in Pavan Sarovar, in Nandagaon, at the Bhajan Kutia of Sanatana Goswami. He just sat against a wall, and Srila Gurudev sat next to him, and a few devotees, we were all sitting in front. And Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, he just began to weep and weep and weep. And everyone was silent, and he was just weeping. And then Srila Narayan Maharaj, he spoke briefly, and then he passed the microphone to Srila Trivikrama Maharaj. Srila Trivikrama Maharaj took the microphone, and all he could do was weep and weep and weep, copiously, not just a few tears. He was just like sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. What is the nature of the heart of some evolved personality who has that sort of taste when he comes to remember the speciality of Sanatana Goswami in Nandagaon? Who are these personalities? Where have they come from? You know, how have they evolved to such a state of deep immersion in their seva to their Ishtadev? So in so many instances, Srila Trivikrama Maharaj could not speak. And even today, we continue the same. It's called the Battle of Samudragar. We go in Navadvip. Every year we go to Samudragar, which is just before, or physically located just after Champahatta, and then we come back to Champahatta. But Samudragar is the place where that king, Samudra Sen, he wanted to have darshan of Krishna. And he thought, if I fight Bhimsen was performing the yagya pastime of guarding the sacrificial horse for Yudhisthira Maharaj. So the sacrificial horse is allowed to wander wherever it likes. And if anyone doesn't accept the sacrificial horse, it means that they're not being submissive to, in this case, Yudhisthira Maharaj. So Samudra Sen thought, well, if I really fight with all my might against Bhimsen, then Krishna has to come and protect him. He'll have to come and protect him. And then I'll have darshan of Krishna on the battlefield. So Samudra Sen brought out all his army and fought so enthusiastically that Bhimsen was being defeated. And he knew he was being defeated. So he called out for Krishna. And then Krishna appears. And Samudra Sen, he had darshan directly. And as soon as he had darshan, then he stopped fighting. Then he immediately submitted to Bhimsen's demands of collecting the tax, etc., for the yagya. And immediately he was satisfied, but he'd had darshan of Krishna. And he also had darshan of Sachinandan Gaurahari at that time. So at this place, there is always the question, who had the most bhakti? Was it Bhimsen, who is a Pandava, Nityasira Parikar, or is it Samudra Sen, who enthusiastically fought so energetically to induce Krishna to come and protect his devotee. So this discussion would go on, and my Gurudev would support Madhubrat's there. Madhubrat, did Gurudev support Samudra Sen, or did he support Bhimsen? I can't remember exactly which one it was. I think it might have been Bhimsen because he was on the Pandavas party, but I'm not sure. I can't be confirmed there. Oh, Yashoda, can you unmute Madhu for a minute? Samudra. Oh, he's saying, okay, so Samudra. So
yes, I've put in the text, I put samurai, which is a bit of a, a spell check. But I think
Samudra
Sen, because his Ishta was Vrindavan Krishna.
Yes. Brajendra Nandan Krishna, right. Exactly, yeah.
But mostly I couldn't understand what was going on because it was all in Bengali, but
yeah. But just to witness the enthusiasm between Gurudev and Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, and then all the other devotees would jump in, and each contender, Srila Trivikrama Maharaj and Srila Gurudev, would have their support parties. Madhav Maharaj and others would be supporting Srila Gurudev, and then I remember Dheera Krishna and a few others would be supporting Srila Trivikrama Maharaj. And this whole discussion and debate became so enlivening for all the devotees. And from that one instance, every single year to this very day, when we go there, 20 years later, 25 years later, practically, this same discussion goes on with great energy and great enthusiasm. So these are the sort of impressions that personalities like Srila Trivikrama Maharaj would inspire within the heart of my Gurudev.
Which side were you on, Maharaj?
I was a bit like Madhubrat. I was just trying to figure out all the, pros and cons on both sides. I wasn't fluent sufficiently in the appreciation. I was always just supporting Gurudev because it was Gurudev, but at the same time, I wanted to understand more closely what exactly, were the Siddhanta and Tattva, because so much Siddhanta, of course, and Tattva, this was the point. This is the point. This is the heart of it, that these sorts of discussions, they churn Tattva and Siddhanta. And this is what my Gurudev would always discuss. He would say, yes, we would churn it based on a solid platform of Tattva and Siddhanta, because in Shastra, there are so many injunctions for this conclusion and simultaneously so many injunctions for an opposite conclusion. So they have to be reconciled. So in these sorts of debates and discussions, like my Gurudev, I was saying, would always be supporting Radha Dasyam. And Srila Trivikrama Maharaj would vehemently support, no, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he would look around with a smile, who's on my side? And then some devotees would be there, yes. And then they would have this amazing discourse. But the nature of their relationship, I think what I heard Bhaktivedanta Nemi Maharaj really bring out was this speciality of their sweet and their extreme, unbelievable respect for each other. I can remember when Srila Gurudev first came back from his first overseas tour in '96, and he came to Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj in Navadvip, and he was sitting on the balcony and he was telling Srila Vamana Maharaj all about his journey to the West. And my Gurudev was very animated, describing everything. And Srila Vamana Maharaj had his eyes wide open, just looking at Srila Gurudev with such admiration. They were so in admiration and support of Gurudev's efforts. Neither of them ever set foot outside of India, Srila Vamana Maharaj or Srila Trivikrama Maharaj. But they lent all of their energy, all of their support. My Gurudev describes that Srila Vamana Maharaj would not always have the time to answer his mails quickly. But Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, because he lived alone basically in Shiligiri and Chinchura, places in Bengal here. And pretty much he just had a couple of sevaks with him. But Srila Vamana Maharaj was always touring, or he was doing many activities involving publishing, etc., like that. But Srila Trivikrama Maharaj would always answer my Gurudev's letters immediately when Srila Gurudev first took out his preaching overseas tours from 96 onwards. So he had this support, like our Nemi Maharaj was saying, it like a family. It was so much, and this is what they were giving to us. But we can remember today specifically this beautiful prayer of Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur. He reasons ill who tells that Vaishnavas die when thou art living still in sound. The Vaishnavas die to live, and in living try to spread the holy name around. We should appreciate, myself today, I've been appreciating the absolute presence of Srila Vamana Maharaj and Srila Trivikrama Maharaj all day today. Today here in India, it's almost 5 o'clock or something. But all day I've been meditating on these two personalities and very much aware that on these days of their disappearance or appearance, there is like a mystical window that opens to receive their special kripa. Don't doubt it for a second. When we glorify, when we have an opportunity to offer Pushpanjali to these types of personalities, these rare illustrious souls, then kripa will descend in our hearts in the most extraordinary ways. So it's not that we're just filling in the time talking about these personalities. We are praying to these personalities to invoke this divine mercy in our hearts today for our progress today. The path of devotion is progressive. We're going forward, even though we're discussing situations that happened 30, 40, 50 years ago practically. But still, we want to remain on the crest of this wave where we are moving towards this complete surrender fully to our Guru Vargya and, of course, our beloved Ishtadevs, particularly, of course, Srimati Radhika. So these personalities, they are really inspiring the hearts today. And if we are appreciative of all of their glories, like today, actually, our Nemi Maharaj was tasked to glorify Srila Vamana Maharaj. And I said I would glorify Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, but really the two are so much combined, and the two really overlap each other in a sense. But Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, in particular, he just made himself so available to the devotees. He would sit with us on Parikrama. And if you can hear that music behind, it's I think it's left over from Kali Puja or something. But Srila Trivikrama Maharaj would, in such a humble way, he would act as if he was just a rank and file devotee himself. He wasn't a guru, as I've explained previously, and he would never for a moment project himself in any sense of importance. He actually said one time something very, very beautiful. He said, I want to die to leave my body alone and unknown. Alone and unknown. How's that? You want to leave your body unknown to others and being alone. That's a really profound statement of absolute internal centeredness, to have that. Oh, I'm being corrected, unloved. Jiva Pavana is saying unloved. But I think it has the same alone and unloved. So yes, he didn't ever want that glory. He had one sevak because he needed someone in the later years of his life just to help him cook, etc., and maintain his life. But at this point, I think we can look at some very beautiful photographs. Manjalali, you have some beautiful pictures there of Srila Trivikrama Maharaj in particular. Can you quickly put them up immediately?
Yeah.
Straight away. Thank you. Good. Oh, well done.
This is all Vamana Goswami Maharaj. 1 second. Here.
Yes, there he is. Srila Bhaktivedanta, Srila Trivikrama. Okay, next one. Yes, beautiful. Okay, another one. Okay, that's a famous one. Another one, I'm looking for it. Yes, this one. You see this one? This is when just before Srila Trivikrama Maharaj went in and disappeared from us. And Srila Gurudev would go and still joking very beautifully with each other. And just, you can perhaps open out the picture and you can see the warmth of the person sitting on the other side of Madhav Maharaj, between Madhav Maharaj and Siddhanti Maharaj. That was his sevak. That was the sevak who looked after him in his final years. Are there any more there? Oh, there's the samadhi.
He looks really healthy there as well. That's quite amazing.
Yeah, but he's just sitting up, but he wasn't getting around very fast. He was very, very slow. Manjulali, you got this. Oh, yes, there's another one. That's a nice one. That's a beautiful one. You can see. Yes, you see the mood of the joking there between the two of them. This was their speciality and sweetness. Yes, this is the three of them sitting together. These are the three pillars of the Gaudiya Samiti, Vedanta Samiti.
Maharaj, can you just go back to the previous one a second? There's so much in that photograph. It's just amazing.
Yep.
Wow.
Very, very mystical threesome. Go forward, Manjulali. I want to show the
Samadhi.
Samadhi, yeah.
Yeah.
He has a very beautiful samadhi that not all the devotees are aware of how beautiful it is. Yeah, this is his samadhi. And it is in a very solitary place in Navadvip. It's not, like Srila Vamana Maharaj, his samadhi is in the Devananda Gaudiya Math, next to his beloved Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj. But Srila Trivikrama Maharaj is kind of very close to the bank of the Ganga, maybe 1 kilometer away from the Math. It is solitary, it is alone. There's a couple of pictures there, Manjulali. You can scroll through all the pictures so we can get a good look at it. Yes, you see? It's a very solitary, it's exactly like him. And one very beautiful devotee from Bangalore, he carved the top part of this in Bangalore and he brought it up by train to place on the roof of this. Another one, yes. Okay, and he placed it on the roof there. It's very ornate. If you open up that picture, you can see just how elaborately carved is the roofing, and that was all done in Bangalore. A very humble devotee again. Everything about Srila Trivikrama Maharaj reeks of humility. Everything from top. This is the strength of these immense personalities. And Srila Vamana Maharaj, of course, was exactly the same, but in a different way. So we get different facets of this remarkable quality. So this is the samadhi today of Srila Bhaktivedanta, Srila Trivikrama Maharaj that we are remembering with such great happiness and joy and thankfulness and gratitude that he walked amongst us even briefly in our lives and was able to share the speciality of his affection for his Gurudev and the affection he had for my Gurudev and the affection he had for Srila Trivikrama Maharaj. This mood of affection and love is what resonated so powerfully, tangibly from these personalities. You can't be deceitful when it comes to the realm of love. You can see it. It's tangible. You can touch it. It's nothing that we're trying to mentally grasp. You can experience it. You can feel it. So this is definitely what these two personalities, particularly Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, he really brought this divine quality. And whenever he spoke, if you can just be patient for a couple of minutes, I'd very much like just to share a very, very brief excerpt from his writings and to get the sort of temperature of how he would speak. So first of all, he's begging for the devotees to pardon him. And then he says, I am not expert in speaking English, therefore excuse my faults. But actually he was expert in speaking English. He says, I offer my innumerable dandavats to the lotus feet of my divine master, Om Vishnu Pad, Ashtatarastara Shishimat Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj, then to all the devotees by whose grace we can proceed to the transcendental world. Every word he says has potency. He says, figures are perceivable when they are of equal merit. Then he says, aprakrit vastu nahi prakrit gochara. That which is transcendental cannot be attained by mundane or material effort. However strong that effort may be, it will be fruitless in the transcendental realm. We are observing, trying to observe something that is purely transcendental and of the highest rank. This Vrindavan Dham is appreciated by the devotees of the supreme rank, not by someone in the lowest position. The same is true for everything relating to Vrindavan, everything relating to Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani. So the entrance key into that world depends upon the divine master, Sri Gurudev, by whose grace we can proceed towards that wealth. You understood what I've just read? That everything is dependent on Guru's mercy, not by my own efforts. This goes in conjunction with really what we were talking about yesterday, the Chesta and the Kripa, the two fingers too short of the rope. That was Mother Yashoda trying to bind Krishna, that we need to make our effort, but ultimately the result will depend on the mercy and Kripa of Krishna. So Srila Trivikrama is relating the same. He's saying, Yasya Devi para bhaktiya yata devi yatata goro. So he's saying the true import of the scriptures is revealed in the hearts of those great souls who have the same unflinching bhakti for their guru as they have for the Supreme Lord. The same for their guru as the Supreme Lord. So on these days of Vaishnava Vandanam, which is today and tomorrow and the next day, right in the middle of our Kartik Parikrama, it's remarkable the dynamic that we have these 3 days where we are glorifying different Vaishnavas, Vaishnava Vandanam. We have the opportunity to appreciate the potency and speciality, the necessity. We've been glorifying the Vaishnavas the whole way. We glorified Narottam, we glorified Madhu Pandit, we glorified Lokanath Goswami, Gauridas Pandit, so many personalities we've glorified around in our Parikrama. We've glorified Giriraj Govardhan. We've glorified Uddhav a couple of days ago. We've glorified the gopis so many times, all these different personalities, but without the mercy of the Vaishnavas, without this connecting link, how can we ourselves connect with our sambandha to them in service? So Srila Trivikrama is saying, this is the stance of the scriptures in relation to this topic. Whatever endeavors we can make, it will be fruitless if we cannot get the blessings of our divine master. So we should try to devote everything that belongs to us to the lotus feet of our Sri Gurudev, by whose grace our attempts can be fulfilled. According to him or our leading spiritual masters, we should try accordingly to our ability. If we try to jump into the superior position, we may fall down and our legs may be broken. So most importantly, we must consider one thing. We must first of all judge where we are. Srila Trivikrama would not speak lightly. He would speak directly to the hearts. He would not just air shastras, but he would connect with us and speak significantly. This katha was needed at the time when he was on Parikrama, actually was when he was speaking this katha. We should try according to our ability. Yes, we make our effort. Some things may be of the highest sphere, but it is no good to me when I'm not able to understand the value of it. This is like our dear Yashodanandan was just describing. He was present there with both of these personalities, but what was the comprehension that he was able to have at that time to appreciate it, to appreciate the immense value of it? So if we cannot appreciate or understand the value of it, Srila Trivikrama is saying, that prema bhakti which Lord Chaitanya Dev has taught is the supreme. It is the highest thing. Even Lord Krishna could not understand it. Krishna has to come himself as Mahaprabhu to understand that prema of Sri Radhika. But he was attracted to that prema and was bound to undertake certain practices to attain the qualification of Srimati Radharani. So Krishna himself came as a sannyasi. He came and performed that bhajan in Puri to attain the moods of Sri Radhika. So that qualification can neither be attained nor understood by fallen souls who are still bound. So we can't be presumptuous and think, oh yes, I'm understanding so much of this. I'm always dependent on the mercy of Guru and Gauranga. As long as we are bound, we cannot understand it. And not only that, however free from bondage we may be, we still cannot understand it unless and until she and her followers, the Sakhis, bless us. So Srila Trivikrama, he conceded to Radharani at this point in his lecture. I remember everyone cheered. The topic of her prema is not related to the souls who are bound by material phenomena and attracted and charmed by material things. Very important. First of all, we should try to rid ourselves of Mahamaya's power over us, and we should try to practice those things which are necessary for that end. I can remember one time meeting Srila Trivikrama Maharaj in Mathura Math, and at that time I had my wife with me, and I approached Srila Trivikrama Maharaj. I said, "Oh, this is my wife." And Srila Trivikrama Maharaj said, "Oh, your wife? Your wife? This is your wife?" And he had to say it 3 or 4 times, and I understood what he was saying. And I said, "Oh no, this is a devotee." And he said, "Yes, you should be submissive to this person. This is a Dharma Patni, and you should honor her properly." So he was speaking very beautifully like this. So we were blessed to have many exchanges with this illustrious personality of Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj. So today I think time is pretty much, oh, you got a few more minutes. But the exchanges he had with all the devotees was very comfortable and very friendly on all levels. In contrast to Srila Vamana, both were radiating mercy to us. We were the recipients of this profound mercy when these personalities were there with Srila Gurudev. They just enhanced the potency, because Srila Gurudev would always become enlivened, especially when they were alongside him on the podium. It would be as if he was remembering his own Gurudev even more prominently when he was in the company of both of these two personalities. I would notice that Srila Gurudev was always exceptionally happy when Srila Vamana Maharaj was there. We saw in that video, first of all, you can tell by Gurudev's body language, he's walking very briskly, and he's really excited to be with Srila Vamana Maharaj. This spiritual energy was racing through him, and the same with Srila Trivikrama Maharaj also. Their speciality, their beauty. So we are so fortunate to have not just one guru, but actually there's 3 of them, because my Gurudev would make it appear that way. He would make it appear that he was one of these 3, especially when they were in the proximity. And the Tirabhav pastime that our Nemi Maharaj described was really, really a tragic occasion. my Gurudev made great expense to actually reach that place to put him in samadhi, and the devotees had already placed him in samadhi. My Gurudev was mortified that he wouldn't have able to, with his own hand, put Srila Vamana. It's a very important service. It's the most important, just like he did to Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He was writing the various mantras on his body. My Gurudev wanted to do that seva very much indeed, and he was deprived of that. So this is the way Krishna had arranged his plan, and this just separated from my Gurudev more completely from that group, that institution, which was greatly to our benefit, of course. Just like Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he didn't stay with the Gaudiya Math. He began that separate society of ISKCON, etc. So this is necessary sometimes in history, or we see it historically. This is the way it plays out, so to speak. So that pastime was enacted in that way. But still the feelings and the remorse of my Gurudev. On that day of his departure, my Gurudev describes, we have lost one of the pillars of the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti today. This was the day of Srila Vamana Maharaja's departure. Today, but I feel some relief knowing that he left during the Kartik month in Sukla Paksh, the bright fortnight, during Niyama Seva Brat, and that it was in Navadvip Dham where he left his body. Also, he left during the time of the Madhyana Leela. He left at 12:25 p.m. at the time of Amrita Yoga, an auspicious, an auspicious time of the day according to the movement of the sun and moon. It is also Tritiya Titi, one of the auspicious days of the fortnight. He inspired us to observe Anukut Mahotsav, Deepavali, Bhatri Vitriya. Internally, in my heart, Srila Trivikrama told me that he would leave this world after we observed those festivals. It was a wonderful thing. Otherwise, if he had left before, we would have been absorbed in thoughts and activities relating to him, and we would not have been able to properly observe those important holy functions. So he chose in this way to leave at this particular time. And my Gurudev concludes, he says, now being the representative of you all, I am offering my heartfelt Pushpanjali at his lotus feet. I think that he has been placed in Samadhi today on the bank of the holy Ganga in Sri Navadvip Dham. Where is he now? He will be in Navadvip Dham or Vraja Dham. He was always especially inclined towards Mahaprabhu in Navadvip, and therefore I think that he is there. I pray for all of us that he will be very merciful to me and to all of you, and that he will inspire us to give us blessings that we can try to serve Sri Hari, Guru and Vaishnavas and do bhajan as he did. So Srila Bhaktivedanta, Srila Trivikrama Maharaj ki jai, Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj ki jai. We are in the same mood, praying and begging piteously for the mercy of these two illustrious personalities to please infuse our hearts with even the slightest particle of bhajan that they were able to manifest themselves in their lifetimes. If we can just reflect even the tiniest drop, this will be the perfection of our lives. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha, kripa sindhavevacha, patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namaha.
Thank you, Maharaj. That was very beautiful. When both katars really synchronized perfectly, and when you were saying how we are talking about pastimes that happened 40 or 50 years ago. This just demonstrates that for personalities like this, time of past, present, and future don't exist. It's like it is the spiritual world, actually, because
Right.
if you were, I don't know, if you were talking about Abraham Lincoln, for example, I would not really feel like Abraham Lincoln was in the room. But you're talking about personalities that are eternal in their nature and are spiritually grounded, coming from a spiritual world. So when you and Nami Maharaj are talking about these great personalities, all three of them actually, we are present to them because of their eternality. It's very beautiful. And there's one thing you said that I wanted to restate, which I underlined. I thought it was beautiful. You talked about Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj as holding the repository of all the sastras in his mind. It's just like such an incredible picture.
Actually, in his heart, actually.
Oh, in his heart. Well, mind and heart, maybe.
Heart and mind, yeah.
Yeah. That at Sanatana Goswami's samadhi, I seem to remember that weeping you're talking about. That's captured on video.
That was in his Bhajan Kutia, not Samadhi. The Samadhi is in Vrindavan, but the Bhajan Kutia is at Pavan Sarovar in Nandagaon.
Is that the one that's captured on the video? Because there's an amazing video.
No, that's in, I think that's in Navadvip. I think that's even Samudragar, the place where I was talking about that, joking about. But so many places, Yashoda, he would just immediately start copiously weeping in so many places, especially towards the end of his pastimes. And it's interesting to appreciate that when Srila Vamana Maharaj left this world, he just stopped talking to anybody about anything. He came and he lived in Govardhan for about 5 weeks, separately from our mutt. And he's just stayed in one small Gaudiya mutt there. And he didn't say a single word to anybody, even his sevak. And he was eating very, very little. And materially, you would think he was like a madman. You would think he was demonstrating Alzheimer's or something of that nature. He just absolutely had nothing to do with this material world at all. He had no interaction with it on any level whatsoever.
Amazing. I love the story about when Gurudev comes back from the West and he's telling Vamana Maharaj everything. And I remember when I was on Parikrama in Navadvip, it was just really interesting because, of course, I met Srila Gurudev. I mean, you were the first person to tell me about Srila Gurudev. And of course, I didn't imagine that, I didn't know there was anyone other than Srila Gurudev, right? And I remember getting a letter from Srila Gurudev and seeing he was the vice president and thinking, what, isn't my guru the president? And getting very confused and then thinking, oh, well, I'm sure that will become obvious. But what was very sweet to me, and it was the first time that this relationship was starting to get revealed a bit, was when I was on the Parikrama, a bit like what you said about how Gurudev would come back from the West. Apparently, when we went out on Parikrama, so many Westerners were coming and the Parikrama was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Gurudev would come back to Vamana Maharaj and tell him how huge the Parikrama was. And it's just beautiful to see your own guru in that almost innocent, childlike mood with his elder brother.
Yes.
So sweet.
Yes.
Regarding Trivikrama Maharaj, once I was on the Parikrama, I think I was just walking on my own actually, and I just noticed, I just felt this energy around me, and it was Gurudev pointing at me to Trivikrama Maharaj, and he's pointing at me like, oh, this is one of my cows I bought in the West, or one of my elephants I brought back. And then he gesticulated to me to put them both on my shoulder and carry them both, because obviously it was enough. And I did think about it for a moment, but then I realized, no, you're way too clumsy for that. But what came home to me from both of your sharings today was the true translation of the word Sambandha, which I researched for Rupa Goswami's Tirabhav festival, and I consulted a couple of erudite persons on Sanskrit. And Sambandha, they explained to me the etymological deconstruction of the word is bandha, meaning the rope of prema that ties two vastus together as close as possible to the infinite degree while remaining two distinct personalities, and sun being the together part. And this is what you're getting. Actually, here is a very unusual situation where you're getting three people of essentially of one heart. performing
And
there.
so diverse personalities.
It's so diverse, and yet
Yes.
so. And I think you touched on something very important for our modern crazy Facebook age, where it's so true. Like the story of Samudra, and what you said about the importance of this. The purport of it is that when you're in discussion with a proper mindset, you may have a different opinion, but you're not puffed up with your own significance, with your own arrogance of intellectual pursuit, but you're actually okay about maybe having a different opinion, but diving into the sastra, finding contradictions, trying to reconcile. Gurudev would say reconcile, reconcile. And this mood of churning the knowledge so that we can actually get some realization, so we can go to the depths of the sastra. This is beautiful that we can do it together rather than confrontation. So
it's to ignite exploration.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. More of that.
Yeah.
So and thank you for reminding us that this is these days, but this particular day when these two personalities left on the same day, that this is a massive window for us to engage ourselves in seva, in meditation, in connection, in sadhana, so that we can receive some kripa, because only by kripa can we get the mercy and, as you said, evolve dynamically as practitioners. So it's beautiful, really beautiful. So thank you so much, Sripad Bhaktivedanta Nemi Maharaj. Thank you so much, Sripad Bhaktivedanta Tridandi Maharaj. Two flutes for Krishna, two flutes for Gurudev in harmony together, sharing Harikatha with us. We're very, very fortunate. So we'll now move to the very last part of the program. And we're very lucky to have Sriman Manas Goswami Prabhu back from India. Thank you so much, Prabhu. It's been a bit confusing on my part today. Apologies, but we're very fortunate to have some more kirtan from you. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Prabhuji.
Dandavats.
Dandavats.
A little bit louder, Prabhu. A little bit louder.
Little louder. How about now? Is it good?
Beautiful, beautiful,
Better?
beautiful.
Okay. So I'm going to sing this bhajan, Shri Govardhan Maharaj. Shri Govardhan Maharaj, Shri Govardhan Maharaj, Maharaj, tere mathe mukut viraj rayo. Shri Govardhan Maharaj, Maharaj, tere mathe mukut viraj rayo.
Sorry, Prabhu, I'm struggling. Here we are. Don't know what happened there. Okay.
Govardhan Maharaj, Maharaj, tere mathe mukut viraj rayo. Shri Govardhan Maharaj, Maharaj, tere mathe mukut viraj rayo. 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 Shri Govardhan Maharaj, Maharaj, tere mathe mukut viraj rayo. Tere kanan kundal sohe rahe. तेरे कानन कुंडल सोहे रहे और गले वजंती माल ओ माल तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो और गले वैजंती माल ओ माल तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो गोवर्धन महाराज महाराज तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो तेरे मुख पे मुरली सोह रही तेरे मुख पे मुरली सोह रही थोड़ी पाई हीरा लाल ओ लाल तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो थोड़ी पाई हीरा लाल ओ लाल तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो 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 श्री गोवर्धन महाराज महाराज तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज गयो तेरे अंग पे जामा केसरिया तेरे अंग पे जामा केसरिया और पटका लाल गुलाल गुलाल तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो और पटका लाल गुलाल ओ लाल तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो 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 श्री गोवर्धन महाराज तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो तो पे पान चढ़े तो पे फूल चढ़े 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 तो पे चढ़े दूध की धार ओ धार तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो श्री गोवर्धन महाराज महाराज तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो तेरी मानसी गंगा निकट वहे तेरे मानसी गंगा निकट वहे तेरे मानसी गंगा निकट वहे तो पे दिए चढ़े दिन रात ओ रात तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो तो पे दिए चढ़े दिन रात तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो श्री गोवर्धन महाराज महाराज तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो तेरी सात कोस की परिक्रमा तेरी सात कोस की परिक्रमा तेरी सात कोस की परिक्रमा हो और चकलेश्वर विश्राम विश्राम तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो और चकलेश्वर विश्राम विश्राम तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो श्री गोवर्धन महाराज महाराज तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो, तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो। श्री गोवर्धन महाराज, महाराज तेरे माथे मुकुट विराज रहो। जय जय गिरिराज, 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 जय जय गिरिराज। जय गोवर्धन, 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 जय जय गोवर्धन। हरि बोल। Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol, Dandavat Pranams. Thank you so much, Manas Goswamiji. Hari Bol. Very, very kind of you to perform this kirtan so often for during this Kartik, and it's very, very beautiful and
I'm
absorbing
fortunate
to hear
to
it.
sing here. I'm
Thank
really
you.
fortunate to sing.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to